Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Commit Message podcast presented to you by the University of Windsor's very own Computer Science Society. I'm your host, as always, as I will be for as long as I think I can, Zane, bringing to you another episode of TCM, and this one's a doozy. Guys, I'm sure you know it if you're from the university, but we're interviewing Ryan today. The Ryan Prairie. The guy everyone loves, everyone wishes they were, you know, just things like that. Ryan and his 6 internships now, talking about all of his experiences, even going back to the start. It's a doozy of an episode. I think it's very long, too. So just enjoy this episode. I don't want to keep you too long because this episode is, like, really nice, honestly. So just one reminder, I gotta plug the YouTube. Make sure to subscribe. Make sure to like the video. Just interact with us in any way. It really helps us out. We're just trying to get ourselves noticed at this stage right now. So any sort of impression, any sort of any activity with the video or the posts means a ton to us. All right, with further ado, I present to you the interview, Ryan Prairie. And we're back with Ryan. Hi, Ryan.
Hello.
Okay, if in case no one knows, Ryan is actually one of the last of the old guard, if you will.
Very touched.
The like the era with Eric and Jose and Brandon. None of us really know any of those guys. I think you're one of the last people to know those guys, and you're still in the
I've
university.
actually, yeah, I've never met Jose. I've just
Okay.
heard a lot of stories, but I do know Rick and Brandon.
Okay. So yeah, Ryan has deep roots to the origins of CSS, right? So
I mean, I'm only like a year older than you.
I mean, yeah, we could get into that too. Okay, so in case you don't know, Ryan is known as the guy right now, the guy around CSS. Ask him a career question, ask him a programming question, ask him a life question. He's got you covered. So Ryan, this entire time, we got to dissect what is it that makes you the guy. So we're gonna start off real quick, and we're gonna talk about we're gonna go really far down, especially in this episode. So what was your upbringing like? What got you into tech as a child?
Yeah, so that's a good question. My dad's like an old school engineer.
Mm-hmm.
So he's I've always been around tech, and I remember making computers with my dad when I was 6 years old. I really wasn't doing anything. He did all the work. If we're being honest. Um, yeah, and then I have a lot of engineers in my family and my parents' friend group. So I've always been around tech and engineering and math and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I've always liked math and tech. And then believe it or not, I used to do dance, a very high level. And then I switched. I went to an art school, and then one day my uncle came over,
In high
and he
school.
was yeah in high school. I was in grade 9 and 10 when I did
Okay.
dance. And then my uncle, he came over and he was showing off his work. And I was like, this is so cool. You got to show me how to do it. And he gave me a 3 hour, what is C sharp? And all that
Ooh.
stuff.
He's a
There's a
software
lot of,
engineer, or
he's kind of a whatever he needs to be engineer.
okay,
Uh,
the
he's,
best type.
he makes a lot of money consulting,
Yeah, sounds
and
like it.
just doing whatever. So he's pretty cool. Yeah, so he taught me C sharp and then it was kind of off to the races. After C sharp, I learned Turing in my ICS course in grade 10. Then I learned Python and bits and pieces of C and then Java, and then I switched schools to go to a robotics techie school called Western Technical Commercial School. It's in
This
Toronto.
wasn't in Windsor, right? You're based in
No, no,
Toronto this entire
yeah,
time.
yeah. I'm born and raised in Toronto.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then I went to the school, and there I already knew a bit how to program. Then I became good friends with the robotics team captain,
Okay.
and he really convinced me you need to be on robotics. So
Okay.
then I started doing robotics. I learned more Java, learned more
Hmm.
Python, and then I started building. Whenever I saw something that piqued my interest,
Interesting
I
to
was like,
note,
ooh,
actually, you started networking very, very fast, didn't you? Because
a, a little bit, yeah. It was more so I just was interested in stuff,
yeah.
and I was in a lot of the same classes as these people. And so they'd be like, "Oh, what are you doing?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm working on this Discord bot." And they're like, "Oh, that's so cool." And then we'd get talking about robotics, and then I did robotics.
So okay, so you, going into high or let's
Yeah, I was going
say
into grade 11
no,
when I started
yeah,
doing
okay,
robotics.
so going into like 11th grade, what do you know tech wise?
So I knew a bunch of Python, a little bit of Java, C Sharp, Turing. That's not useful. Um, I made a few Discord bots. Actually think I just made one Discord bot at that time.
Okay, and how would you describe yourself as a student? Would you say as in
Atrocious.
okay,
I'm
uh,
still a really awful student, but it was way worse in high school.
okay,
Like
and do you
I
think is it
failed a
because of
bunch of
an
courses.
aptitude or like
No, I think I'm just kind of lazy about school. I don't
okay,
see like the major benefits. Like I know like in
yeah,
my head, like, oh, of course you get to go to school, it's good for life, but I've never really cared.
okay,
I've never had that drive to be good at school. When I do well in courses, it's not because I study, it's because I just the stuff makes sense to me.
okay.
Um,
So any examples of how poor you were in high school?
yeah, I failed grade 11 physics,
Okay,
but I failed with a 49. That's a whole other story.
ugh,
Yeah, and then I failed grade 12 uh, functions, and then I had
okay.
to retake that. I
Summer
ended up
school?
doing fine when I retake. I retook physics in summer school, and then I just took uh, functions the
Okay.
next year because I did 5 years in high school.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Hmm.
So you're looking towards a degree. I'm guessing by fourth, fifth year of high school, right?
Hmm.
So, what attracted you to CS? By the end of 12th grade, before you actually say that, what do you know about CS? What do you know about other fields? What attracted you towards CS?
That's a good question. So, um, I still have a friend. His name's Daniel Angel. I talk about him sometimes on the Discord server. He's a very good friend of mine. But
Okay.
he's a few years older than me, and he was doing CS at Drexel University in Philadelphia.
Okay.
And he was telling me like all about CS, and I was like, like I'm on the fence. Like all my family is like engineers. Like, should I just become a software engineer? And he's like, no. Like, what do you like more? Do you like the math and that goes with building things? Do you like really understanding it? Or do you just like making things and hoping that they work? And I think I really enjoy the understanding and fundamental aspects of CS more. And so
Okay.
that's what really pushed me towards it.
Okay. So in your mind, you were always going to university, or was there another option?
Uh, there was a while where I was very like teenage angsty, and I was like, I don't need school. School sucks. And I was very like, I don't need school because I was already making projects. Like
Yeah.
I was already making stuff, and like I thought like I could make it on my own. Which I mean, realistically, maybe I could have,
Yeah.
but I am glad that I am doing CS.
Okay. So comes to application period. You're on OUEC, I think it's called. And
Yeah.
what schools did you apply to for what major? Did you have any fallbacks? I'm guessing this was the
Um,
fallback.
yeah, this was the fallback. My grades were awful. I applied to a few schools, and I did calculus online in my last year. And I was cruising the entire course, and I was like, you know what? I don't have to finish it right now. Like, it's fine if I leave it for like a month. And that was a mistake because the fact that I left it for a month meant that my calculus grades didn't get counted, and I only got into Windsor. Um,
Oh man, nightmare scenario, huh, for a Toronto kid?
and I mean, it's not the end of the world. My grandparents live in Windsor,
Okay.
and my dad grew up partially in Windsor, so it's like it's not the end of the world. And I was never too worried or upset.
Okay. Very chill guy about this so far. Okay,
Yeah.
so you've decided, or the system has decided, that you're going to the University of Windsor for computer science. Do you know going in what the difference between a University of Windsor degree is? Baseline, I mean, without any extra work. A University of Windsor degree and a Waterloo degree, for example, in our province.
I knew bits and pieces. Like I have a lot of friends that go to Waterloo, even still to this day. Like
Yeah.
out of my robotics team and like all the people contributing, about 2/3 went to Waterloo.
Okay.
And so like most of my friend like a lot of my friends went to Waterloo, and so I was like I always knew like Waterloo is the gold standard. Like it's like
Yeah.
the greatest thing in the world, quote unquote.
I mean, in our
Um,
country, yeah.
yeah. And so like I kind of always understood that, but I also like degrees have never mattered a ton
Yep.
in our industry. Like, of course, if you go to like Harvard or Waterloo, like you're like, whoa, you know.
Yep.
But if you don't go to some crazy name brand school, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
And
Okay.
and I felt like that then, and I still feel like that now.
Okay. And you came into University of Windsor. You felt as though you would succeed regardless of the degree,
Yeah, I think so.
and that's important. Confidence is key, right? So you can't come in thinking, "Oh shit, I'm in the University of Windsor. Fuck." Like, well, you can think that before going in, but you have to put in the work as you're going in, so that your degree. And I've mentioned this with Layla. One degree, even though it says the same like written word, like you've attained the same degree as someone else, the work you put in for either degree matters so much more. If someone got a software engineering degree at University of Windsor, did like what 4 or 5 internships, it's way better than the same guy who just did the courses, right? And
Absolutely.
and that's the thing recruiters notice. Like that's not necessarily like hidden value or anything like that. That's it's like fairly visible, especially when you apply to jobs, right? But we'll get into that a
Absolutely.
bit later. We're coming into first year, okay, and first semester now.
So I
So,
guess when I was going into first year, I already had my first internship.
oh,
Uh, I did my first internship at my last semester in high school because it was required for my high school diploma. I
oh,
did
right.
a
You started
schism.
university in Windsor or Winter, right?
Yeah, no, I started in fall. Um, so my last intern or my first internship was in 2018, like winter, spring 2018, and then I started university fall 2018.
Okay, okay.
So
So,
so I
what was
worked at
that?
a yeah. So my high school's co-op. I actually failed high school co-op because I didn't do any of the work around it.
Yeah.
I only did the job. And so I got a big fat fail. And I mean, it doesn't matter now. I didn't think it mattered much then. Um, yeah, and so that was actually pretty cool. I worked at a company called Resources IT. Um,
Okay.
I'm almost certain that no one's heard of it. Um,
Yep.
but essentially, the company is a subsidiary of this very large group called the Publicis Group. They're
Yep.
French. I mean, some people may know that Jeremy works for Publicis
Yep.
Sapient, and Resources IT works like with Publicis Sapient as well as like a bunch of other ad agencies.
Yep.
So I was just like a standard like IT intern. Like they were like, go do this, go do that, and I would just do it. It's like go
Okay.
pick up the computers on this floor at this ad agency. So I'd go to that ad agency. Um, but it was enjoyable. It was only a half day. I really liked my coworkers. I actually still think that they were great people and they were very good for me. Um,
Right.
but it was like, it wasn't an interesting job. It didn't like challenge me mentally or anything. But who cares? Like it
And
was a
back then,
fun
remote
fun
wasn't
network.
so widespread, right? So
Hmm.
it was an in-person job, most likely.
Yeah, it was in person. I was mostly just like a I don't know what the term is, but like a they would like delivery guy. They'd be like, "Oh, pick up this computer on this floor," and I'd like bring the cart and I'd like walk up and I'd like put the computer on and I'd bring it back to my desk and they'd be like, "Okay, now you wipe the computer." So I'd wipe the computer and then I'd reinstall an OS and I'd put it back in the stock room and stuff.
Were high school co-ops paid? Because as far as I know, like 90% of them
No,
weren't, right? Yeah.
no, mine wasn't paid. But
Okay.
fun fact, the webcam that I'm using was from that co-op.
Oh,
Um, yeah,
some value.
Kelvin Zhang, he was my manager. He was like, "Hey, we have this webcam. We don't need it. You want it?" And I was like, "Yeah."
Yeah, I want the webcam. All right, so we're going into first year. We have some
Mhm.
internship experience.
Yeah.
Do we know like okay? Do you know what a MERN stack is? Do you know what a Mevin
Yep.
stack is? Okay, so you're already ahead of most first year students, I would say.
Yeah. Going into first year, I already knew LaTeX because I was
Okay.
taking all my math notes since grade 12 in LaTeX.
Oh, that's
So
cool.
I was doing that, and then I actually tried to get out of the C course, like Intro to C course. Um, but Copy said that I actually had a meeting with Copy, and he said that I missed the cutoff by 2 days. And I was like, oh
Kopti
no.
being the director of CS at our school, right? So
Yeah. So then, first class, I had with Summit. It was like the Wednesday block. It was like 7 to 10. That was one class a week.
Oh,
And I
seven
walk
to ten.
in, and the Summit's like, "Who here is no C?" And I'm like I know like basics of C, like enough to get around. You know? So I put up my hand, and he's like, "Everyone who has their hand up, why are you still here?" And I was like, "It's a very good point." So I just went to my dorm room.
Oh, you just left after cement was like, why are you here?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
There's no real need for me to be there.
and I'll just rewind you a little. You decided to go to a dorm on campus as opposed to living with your
Off campus.
grandparents or off campus.
Yeah.
What was the thought process behind that?
Uh, I don't know. Dorms are cool. I love my grandparents, but I don't think it'd be fun living with them. And then I didn't know much about off-campus housing at that time,
Okay,
so I really wanted the in-dorm experience and all that stuff.
right. Okay, so at this time, did you know of CSS or did you? What was the state of CSS at this time?
So this is very fuzzy, but I remember CSS was small, but the Discord server was new, and it was like everyone was on it. Like it was like the hottest thing.
Yep.
Um, I should have asked this before, but are we allowed to swear?
I said fuck like 3 times already, man.
All right, cool. Yeah, so it's like a hot as shit. Like everyone's like on the server, and I joined, and I remember being really scared to talk when Brandon and Eric were talking
Yeah, I would
because
be
they
too.
because at the time they were like gods, you know. Like I was like this little baby first year, and they were just like the coolest people.
At that time, like what? Like Eric was probably doing like GitHub or something at that time. Like
I think it was before he was working on GitHub.
okay, so
Yeah, I think it was
this guy,
after Shopify, during Google. Not 100%
yes.
sure about
So
that.
like this guy Eric, even when I came in, he was in his last year when I was in, and man, like he gives like this presentation to first years, and I don't know if he did it for you guys, but
He did it the first year that I was or there.
right. So if you attend that, like it actually makes you feel like some next level student. Like I can actually do this, as opposed to like I gotta figure out how to do this. It's literally
Yeah.
some guy who's done everything you ever wanted to do, telling you how to do it. And it's amazing.
Yeah, the craziest thing was like he was expecting like maybe 15, 20 people there.
Yeah.
So he like got this like small classroom, and there was easily 50 people there.
Yep.
And so there was not enough room, so we had to move.
Yep. I think the same thing happened in the following year too with us. So okay, we're you saw that internship presentation. What did you get out of that? Would you say before verifying whether it was true or not? Like, what did you? Because later on, you would know what works, what doesn't work, right?
Yeah, it was very much like I want to do that. I want to do cool stuff.
Okay.
Um, yeah, like it's just like magic, you know. Like this guy is the top of his field, you know. Um, and so being like I like my friend Daniel, he is also like very accomplished, and I thought he was a god too. And Daniel gave me like all this advice, like do
Yep.
this to your resume, like make these things,
Mm-hmm.
and Daniel like really instilled like above all, companies care about passion. You got to be passionate about what you're
Mm-hmm.
doing,
Right.
or it doesn't matter. And so ever since I was like younger, it's been instilled into me that I have to care about what I'm doing, or I
Yep.
won't do it well.
Okay. So before we get into more of the intern side, let's focus more on your courses. How were they first semester?
So I had so the courses were fine. I did really poorly in all of them because about a month into my schooling, a very, very good friend of mine died.
Oh.
Um, yeah, it was a really rough time there. So I failed calculus.
Hmm.
I almost failed linear algebra and Comp 1000.
Oh.
Uh, it was a rough time for younger Ryan. It's gonna be.
Okay. Uh, so now you've essentially just extended your university schedule out at least a semester by that,
Yeah,
and
but I was already planning on doing 5 years
yeah.
in university.
So
So
you
it didn't
you're
change
kind of like
anything.
mimicking the Waterloo schedule, were you?
Yeah, it wasn't on purpose at the beginning, but then it very much became on purpose as I went on.
So you ended up. I mean, that's for later, but you ended up doing work study. I mean, sorry, Yeah, work study, work study, work study, right?
No, no, I did. My schedule is a lot weirder. For the first 4 years, I did 2 semesters school, one internship, 2 semesters school, one internship, and then 2 semesters school, one internship, then school, internship, internship, and I'm on that last internship, and then 2 school terms, and I'm
Okay,
done.
a lot to get through. So, uh, first semester not going off so hot. Any extracurriculars or things you did that might have stood out in first semester?
Uh, Not much. I had this really stupid idea of making a secret CSS, um, and calling it SCSS, which is like SAS, like
Yeah, I'm like, oh, right. You alive?
yeah, I'm
All
laughing.
right.
You're good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
SCSS, your
yeah.
SAS clone.
It was just a dumb idea. It was like a stupid joke. It
Okay.
literally went nowhere, and it wasn't really serious. It was just something funny.
Okay. And did you make any friends in your first semester that might have been important?
I did, yeah. I met Bailey Chittle,
Okay.
when we were in or a Welcome Week,
Yep.
the Welcome Week event, and we're actually Bailey is still a very good friend of mine.
Yeah, just got a job, didn't he? Congrats,
Yeah,
Bailey.
he did. Shout out to Bailey. He's a total homie. I love that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I met another friend, Angel, who I'm also still friends with. I actually met all of my friend group, or the strong majority of them, in first year.
Okay. And this is pre-pandemic, so the things are a little bit changed, but we're going back to it now. So,
Yeah.
okay. And okay, so second semester, what's happening? What's new?
I had to retake calc,
Yep.
and I took it with Jin Wang, but I went to Sarker's lectures.
Oh,
Um,
I yeah. Okay.
Sarker's he's a tough prof, but his I think his teaching is very good.
He's like a top two lecturer, I think.
I'm totally with you. He's a very very good lecturer. And so that I think that gave me like a big leg up. And Jin Wang, like there's no shade towards her. She's a great prof as well.
Mm-hmm.
I just felt like Sarker was just a better prof for
Mm-hmm.
me at that time.
And how are you feeling about the university overall during your second semester?
Not great. Um, there was like a lot of really weird things going on, like how they treated res. I wasn't super happy about. So I lived on the fifth floor of McDonald Hall,
Okay.
which is now I think called Residence Hall West. Um, Even though it's not the most west one, I'm pretty sure another hall is west. Anyway, that's not the point. Anyway, so I lived on the science floor.
Okay.
Um, Even though 40% of us were in CS, so they only did science things, and like the rest of the floor was like not across the board, but like a lot of people were like very vocal about how upset they were about CS people being on their floor and stuff like that.
Oh man.
And so every like 2 or 3 weeks we had a professor come in and like talk about their work, and we never had any CS profs. And I
Like
remember
in your hall?
like they would just come in and they'd like talk about their research,
Oh
in
seriously?
like our lounge.
Oh damn. The dorms kind
Yeah,
of have an
and
advantage.
I mean, they can be, but the dorms were pretty dingy. I'm gonna be honest. Like there was only one working toilet, and I had to share the bathroom with everyone, all the guys on my floor. And there's only one
Oh.
working toilet. There was never any toilet paper. Almost never any soap. Um, Showers didn't work. During December, I think it was, might have been January. The hot water pipes burst in my building, and they flooded the lobby, and there was no heat in my dorm for like 3 days. And this was when it was like might have been like 2 or 1 day, but it was like some extended period of time, and it was like -40 out. And I remember just like sleeping in my coat.
Oh my god.
It was very cold, and there was no hot
Sounds like
water or
something from
anything.
hell, man.
It was pretty bad. I'm gonna be honest.
Okay, so we're definitely not high on the university. A common theme, actually, with all the it's it's interesting. Almost every guest is not very high on the university, and we'll continue on that. It's not just a one time thing for you, especially. In fact, it probably got worse over time.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I think it really did.
so Did you do anything for CSS at that time in first year, second semester? Okay.
No, I didn't. I did have friends on CSS.
Yeah.
Jose, not Jose Alba. I am Jose Santos
Okay.
and Philip
Oh.
Kaneshtovich. I can never pronounce his last name. Um,
I just call it Nesvik.
yeah, that Philip. Yeah, so they were on CSS, I think, as event coordinators at the time.
Okay.
Um, and I was very like I was very interested in what they were doing,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't want to participate yet. Um, yeah,
Okay.
but there going back to the dorm topics, there was one good thing about my dorm, and it had a theater in the basement,
Okay.
and you could like book out the theater, and it was like a normal movie theater. Like they had like movie seats and like a big
Oh,
projector, and it was great because I'd book it out like all the time with my friends. We'd have movie nights there. We'd just like chill in the theater. It was great time.
amazing.
They were very good about that.
Okay, that's cool actually. And any discernible skills? Like, did you up your networking game? Did you go to hackathons in this period of time or no?
I didn't go to any hackathons. I did make a bunch of projects at this time. I made one project. I think it's actually still on my GitHub. It's a dog Morse code, and it's so dumb. It is it's like a text window or like it's TK inter.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then it's like if you do a dot, it's me saying dog, and if you do a dash, it's me saying doggo. And it's really
Oh,
stupid, but it was very fun. It's
okay.
like a Saturday morning, like just a throw it on the GitHub project.
Okay. Did this project ever lead to anything, or was it space
No,
filler?
no, it's just for fun.
Okay. Okay, so in case you missed it, Ryan's first year boiled down to, well, he didn't do too well academically, but as you'll see later on, it wasn't too relevant. And then second, he built projects, and this is crucial, especially when you don't have any or less. He had experience actually, but especially when you have little or no experience, your projects are so essential. It it tells everyone the quality of the student that's applying to an internship or even like a full time, because when it comes to applying to like any role, first thing is they look at is experience. Well, I guess experience or education. It depends on the role. But okay, so first experience, and then second would be skills, and then what justifies their skills, right? So projects are a huge one for skills, especially in our industry, right?
Yeah, I would
So
also say that projects like level up your skills,
right,
and that's like
especially if you can collaborate and things like that.
absolutely,
Yeah.
completely.
So
Yeah,
learning
so
version control is huge, especially at a job. Like,
oh, completely. Yeah,
yeah,
Git is essential
yeah,
nowadays.
yeah. So your summer, actually, you landed an internship. So tell me about.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
tell me about how you landed it. Actually.
All right, so my parents are friends with this guy. I'm not gonna say his name, but he worked at CIBC and he was like higher up,
Mm-hmm.
um, and he recommended me to this job, and I applied to like a ton of jobs on the CIBC website. I applied to
Mm-hmm.
like I think like 70 jobs total my first internship period, um, which is like
In
not a lot,
CIBC or like.
like in general.
Okay.
Not
Okay.
at CIBC. I think I applied to like five at
This was
CIBC.
in first year, second semester ish, the winter
Yeah,
ish area.
that's
Okay.
exactly it. Yeah, I actually yeah. So then I had this interview with this team at CIBC, and
Yep.
the interview was it was all right. They asked a few math questions, and I struggled a bit on one, but I ended up getting it. And then they gave me like this very basic programming question. I actually remember it. It was like given this code, and it was like a linear search. It was just like
Okay.
a for loop, and they're like, "How do you optimize it?" And the optimization was just
Binary.
add break.
Oh.
Uh, that's what they were looking for. They were just like add a break statement after it found the thing. It's
Oh,
like,
right. So
all right.
because it doesn't have to go through the rest of it, right? Okay.
That's
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, I
Okay.
mean
So
it was very simple, and they
okay.
were looking for like someone new. They were looking for it was a team of data scientists, and
Okay.
they were looking for a developer to help them
Probably in
up their
Python.
game. Yeah, exactly. It was in Python.
Okay.
Um,
So you ended up in CIBC
mhm.
for that first year summer, which is huge actually, because a lot of first years don't do this. They're like, oh, I'm a first year. I'm not gonna get much. The truth is, it's what you believe. Like, you know that saying, like, whatever you believe can happen. You're right. right? Like whether you believe it can happen, you're right. If you don't believe it, you're right. It's really just like a perspective change, right? And
Absolutely.
you didn't really let like constant negative replies on your application to get you down. I mean,
No,
you
I
had an
didn't.
in, but you still did well in the interview, right? So
Yeah,
that's one like huge actionable step you should be taking, especially for your first year. Doesn't matter what you get or what you don't get. You're learning by applying to these internships, by getting these just experiences in general, like getting these interviews. You know what an interview is like. Get the star method, things like that. And
absolutely.
yeah, so talk about your CIBC internship. What
Yeah.
happened?
It was actually a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Shout out to my team. Shout out to Ming Zhang. He was my boss. He's a total homie.
yep,
Um, yeah, it was a very cool team. Most of them went to Waterloo,
yeah,
and I was the only intern. Um, I actually remember my first day. We had a intern orientation,
yeah.
and they didn't tell me like not to eat or there will be food there. So I ate like a full meal with my team before, and then I went to this, and I was like, man, I'm like full, but I can't take advantage of this free food. But the orientation was honestly very boring.
Okay,
It was like at the top of the CIBC tower, which is I actually think they're selling it now, but I'm not completely sure. Um, and it was just like 5 hours up there at the top of the tower, and they gave us like TED talks and stuff, and it's like I like this. It doesn't apply to me, you know.
yeah.
Um, yeah, but the internship was a lot of fun. For the first little bit, it was just me doing like optimizing like data science scripts in Python
Okay.
or R, or like giving advice and algorithm advice for like for that kind of stuff, because they also used a language called SAS,
Mm-hmm.
which is a very old data science language.
Okay, not
Uh,
the CSS or
no, no, very different. Um, yeah, so then I worked on that for a bit. They wanted to do some like NLP stuff, so I tried working on that, but I didn't make any progress.
okay.
And then after a while, they're like, we have this idea for this website. And I was like, okay, I'm all ears. So I was listening to their idea, and I was like, why don't we change it up and do it like this instead? And they're like, oh, that might be good.
You
Um,
definitely recommended the tech stack then, because
yeah, I chose the tech stack.
yeah. Okay.
So at the time, um, they were sending around this like giant Excel file around Canada, and people would like manually add entries, and it was just a
Oh.
nightmare. It was like 20 gigs or something, and it was awful, awful time.
Oh.
Um, so the idea was to create like essentially a data aggregation service. It's just a
Yep.
form where it's a dynamic form where people add stuff and then goes into our system. And then later on, you can search it up, or you can view our Tableau dashboards with all the data on it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I actually remember this Harsh dip. Um, we all know Harsh. Harsh is
Yeah.
a total homie.
Episode
He
one.
was. Oh yeah, yeah. I just listened to it actually before this. Yeah, so Harsh is a total homie. He was talking about this new JavaScript framework called Svelte,
Oh my god.
and I was like, oh, that's so cool. So I started playing around with it at work, and I was like, it's so effortlessly easy to use.
Okay.
And this was like Svelte one, like it had
Okay.
just like exited beta stage, like it was like very brand new. And I was like, I'm gonna use this. So I learned Svelte, and like it took me like I don't know, like 3 or 4 hours.
That's
Like
cool.
Svelte
Out of
is
all the places I'd expect Svelte to be used, CIBC, a big bank, would not be like not
yeah,
even the first 10 companies I'd say.
yeah. My team, especially my boss, was like, we don't care about the tech stack. Use what is best for the job.
Yep.
And so I made myself a list of requirements. So I was like, the tech stack has to be easily maintainable by data scientists. So it has to be ultra simple.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be fast, of course.
Yes.
And then basically from there, that was the only two major requirements.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else was fair game. So I chose Python with Flask as my backend, because
Okay.
that's what I knew best at the time. And then I chose Svelte on the front end,
Right.
with Rollup as my bundler and JavaScript, because TypeScript wasn't really a thing then.
Mm-hmm.
Also, Svelte did not have support for TypeScript.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, it was this was a while ago. So I wrote.
I
I
love how when
remember.
you say a while ago, it was actually like 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, but tech moves fast.
Yeah, that's the insane thing. Yeah, go on.
Yeah. So I wrote my program, and I spent like the majority of my internship on it, like 3 months. Um, and it went really, really well. It actually went like crazy well.
Yeah,
My project, my little intern project, rolled out nationwide to every CIBC branch. And last I heard, it's still being used in every branch across Canada.
that's amazing. And you had a budget for this, right?
Uh, yes, there was a budget. The
Yes.
budget. I remember the meeting where they told me the budget. They're like it's 150,000 or something like that, and I was like, "Whoa!"
Whoa.
Like they're like, "Where is this money coming from? Like, what do we need?" And my boss was like, "Welcome to the bank," because they just
Fintech.
like throw money at problems.
Right. Okay. I mean,
But realistically, I used basically none of the budget, just my salary.
okay.
Because like we didn't need to host it. We had internal databases and servers,
Yep.
and that was it.
So you basically save them like potentially like 140 something thousand dollars.
Maybe, who knows?
Uh, yeah. So
Probably.
okay, there's one. Okay, so one trending thing is like working for fintech as a software engineer, right? And I'd like to like make a difference, like a differentiation. Fintech in Canada is like it's a bit different. Like salaries are generally lower, even at the top companies. But honestly, I don't see like software engineers like making more than top companies. Like for example, the difference between a software engineer at Google and a software engineer at like RBC or something, like a bank, it's actually either minimal or Google pays higher, right? Is what I've found.
That's
But
essentially
it's
it in Canada.
yeah. So in the United States, like fintech's like a different beast altogether. So that's the differentiation I'd like to make before we move on. So okay, you've done the CIBC internship. Did you okay? So what were your thoughts on returning to CIBC? So because I'm assuming everyone loved you.
Yeah, I actually I actually had a very good time with my team, and we all got along very, very well.
Yeah.
And my team was all very young people. Like the average age was like 24 or something on my team.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the only one who was over 26 or the only person over 29 was my manager, who was like
Okay.
31. So everyone was very young. We were a very high performing team. So I thought about going back. I actually they made me an offer for full time. Um, they were like, you should just drop out and work here. And I was like,
Drop
like
out? Oh my
I thought
god.
about it. I really thought about it.
I mean, that would be like a hair splitting decision. Honestly, could be talking to a very different Ryan Prairie right now.
Absolutely. Like the money would have been good,
Yeah.
and the work. I don't think I would have loved the work.
Okay.
I
Key
didn't
distinction.
love what I made. I really enjoyed my team, and that was the
Yep.
biggest difference. Like the work is work, and I web dev was my big focus at the time.
Mhm.
But it was all right. So I thought about going back, and actually almost did go back,
Okay.
because I almost didn't get a second internship, or I guess a third
Ooh.
internship, second university internship.
Yeah. So let's go into your third semester at university, and you weren't taking 231 at the time. You couldn't
I don't remember.
have. Yeah. I mean,
Courses are all blurry.
okay. So it's fine. We'll ignore the courses for now. You're applying to your third internship,
Yep.
second software related internship. And what are the big factors in your mind right now?
Uh, get a really cool job. That was the biggest
Did you
thing.
care about moving? Did you care about like pay or did you care about
I did care a bit because I was paid a lot at CIBC. Looking back at it, I was actually paid more than a lot of other people who worked at
really?
CIBC.
Okay.
I was making 26 an hour,
Oh, okay. That's
and
pretty
I
good.
remember it was crazy.
Yeah.
Like I only started making over that I think at my fourth or fifth internship.
Okay.
I remember talking about it like in the CSS Discord. I like, hey, is it bad to take a pay decrease? How should I feel about this? And Brandon's like, I was making 21 at Bell. Like, you're gonna be chilling, and I was like, all
Oh,
right, like it's not that big
okay.
of a deal. Yeah, so I applied a lot of companies, and I got a bunch of interviews and a bunch of OAs and stuff like that.
Okay,
Um,
so this is what I want to talk about. So OAs, what's the feeling on OAs? Because I know like the real successful people at OAs typically don't do them fairly. You know, the way to successfully and continuously succeed at OAs is either A, grind really hard, or B,
Gee.
teamwork makes the dream work. So
Yeah, I do very poorly on OAs.
okay,
I This is just like a common theme in my life. I test poorly
yeah.
on almost everything. Like even things I know very, very well, I test really poorly on.
Oh, we should probably rewind. OAs mean online assessments. Companies send them when you've applied and they want to screen out applicants because usually these guys are getting like over 200 applications I see on LinkedIn, and it's probably way
Must
over
be
200.
way more.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, it's not uncommon to see like the really big ones like send out like two OAs. It's insane. But
Yeah.
anyways, uh, about OAs is that the issue with OAs is that they're usually much, and I mean a lot harder than what they were going to ask you on the interview. And the interview is actually harder than what you're going to do on the job. So because this like the difficulty at the start, and then it just goes all the way down. But yeah, anything about OAs because it's like kind of like I wouldn't say it's like not talked about. It's just like pretty small topic. No one really says too much about OAs.
Yeah, I think the big thing about OAs is research and grinding correctly.
Yep.
So about grinding correctly, for a long time I was very in the mindset of just like every elite code question is fair game, grind, grind, grind. But that is a very bad mindset.
Yep.
The best mindset is to do something like grind 75 or like blind 75 even, or
Yep.
like neat code or whatever. Like go through these
These curated
curated
lists.
plated
Yep.
exactly, yeah, curated lists of like what is good things to study, what they ask more in interviews, and
Mm-hmm.
about research, like the leak code forums and the hacker rank forums have a lot of like the kinds of questions they ask,
Yep.
and that is exactly where you want to focus.
And when
For
did you start
Facebook,
doing this stuff?
like
Like
OAs or like
leak
grinding.
code, leak code.
Uh, I've always been really bad at it. I always
Okay.
like start grinding, get like a week into it, and I'm like, I hate this, and then I don't do it anymore.
Okay. So go on with Facebook.
Yeah, so like Facebook, like they have like graph questions. That's like a big thing that Facebook is known for
Yep.
asking. So you're not gonna
Meta
like,
now, right?
yeah, meta now. You're not gonna like, if we're applying to meta, you're not gonna be like, oh, I gotta look up my hash maps. Like they're gonna be asking graph questions the majority of the time, and that goes with like all other companies, big companies. You want to grind and research correctly. You
Yeah.
want to know where to put your efforts.
Okay. So on this topic, you're going on. I'll get more of your takes later. Just want to get through your history first. I can't wait for Ryan's take. That'd be a great segment. Okay, so you're going into your BlackBerry. Is that system design?
No. So the thing with BlackBerry is all job titles are completely misleading.
Oh,
It's like a really weird thing that they do where HR like censors every job application for security. So I applied to BlackBerry. Like my mom knew someone at BlackBerry and he recommended me.
okay,
Um, but he actually only recommended me after I applied, but that's not the point.
okay.
Um, yeah, so I actually didn't get any. I got a few interviews like throughout the year, and then I got nothing. So I was home for
Jeez.
reading week, and I was like, I got rejected for everything. I maybe sent out like 200 applications or something like that, like a
Yeah.
very large number, and I was getting worried.
Even
So I
with
was
your
on,
CIBC,
yeah, even with my CIBC.
that's crazy.
Yeah, so I was back for reading week in Toronto, and I like talked to this guy at BlackBerry, and he seemed very nice, and I already applied to like a few jobs, so I told him, and we talked, and so I ended up getting two interviews at BlackBerry. One of them was for a job on BlackBerry's open source vulnerability team. So essentially, what
Security.
yeah, it's security. So what they do is they have people that go through open source software that BlackBerry uses, looks for vulnerabilities, tries to fix them if they can. If not, then they report them to the wider public.
Mm-hmm.
or to the team and then the wider public. This is a way to keep open source security, safe.
Yeah. Okay.
So I actually remember that interview. They asked me, there was three of them, and they asked me if I liked mayonnaise, and I was like, what?
This like some weird like behavioral question. Like,
Yeah, like I didn't really know how to answer. I was like a bit of mayo is good, but too much is bad.
okay,
Yeah. Anyway, I did not get that job. Uh, Even
definitely
though
not the take on mayonnaise then.
not the take. Yeah, and I got some advice from Ming when I was back at CIBC. He was my manager, if you forgot.
Yep.
Um, and he said the longer your interview goes, the better sign it is.
Yep.
So with this job, I had one interview, or my interview, or sorry, I had two interviews, and then my first one with the Mayo job, it went overtime by 15 minutes, and I was like, oh, it's such a good sign. I thought I was vibing with the team and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had one the next day with just two guys, and it was supposed to be an hour, but it was only like 15 minutes. So I was like, man, I'm not going to get that job.
Okay.
But funnily enough, the reverse is true. I got the job for the 15-minute interview.
Yeah,
I didn't get the one of the long one.
that's actually interesting because in the past couple of podcasts, like people like the interviewees, I guess they all say to me like, "Oh, I thought this bombed, but like something changed, or like they just got the job somehow." It's really strange from the interviewee's perspective on how they got the job. So just because
Yeah.
you bombed an interview doesn't mean give up all hope. But
Yeah. Yeah, I thought my interview went all right, but like it just seemed very like blasé. Like they weren't too interested. But I ended up did getting the job. Sorry if you can hear my dog. She
that's fine.
barks. Yeah, so I ended up did getting the job. And I was working on actually I don't think I can talk about what I was working
All right.
on. But I was working
Tech
on
stack.
some like security like web dev stuff. Um and it was an all right job. I didn't do a lot of work at the job. I think my team was very busy, and also I had a lot of technical issues
Okay.
that were like BlackBerry's like IT team's fault. Um, so much so that my mentor, he had like an interview with IT and me, and he just was yelling. Uh, Maybe he wasn't yelling. He was like he was very upset. I remember that. He was like, "This shouldn't happen. Like, he can't do his work because you guys have failed." I was like, "Oh my god."
So, in case you didn't know, in the modern day, BlackBerry exists mostly as a government contractor. If I'm correct.
Yeah, you're completely correct.
Okay, so
They do a lot of security stuff. They've pivoted
so
away
yeah,
from phones to security.
a lot of stuff is confidential as is expected, but you did like React. I think you did some web dev there, right?
Yeah, I did a React and JavaScript front end, Node.js, Koa, and GraphQL backend.
Okay, so you developed some sort of web app.
Yeah, it was some kind of web app, and I had to. There was like this large breaking change in Webpack. I don't remember what the exact change was, but I had to write this large translator to take thousands of config files and change it into this new format.
Okay.
So that was I think my lasting impression because last I heard it was still used.
Ooh,
So that's
not
something.
bad. Lasting memories at the internships. Okay, so all right, so we're done 2 internships now, and by now it must be getting easier, right? You'd think.
Yeah.
After all this work, right? You must be getting interviews now. Coming into next semester, of course. You're probably looking at like what? Like you're probably not even making 100 apps anymore, right? You're probably making.
I actually applied to only a few jobs for this one.
Yeah. Okay.
I think only I applied to like 15 or something, some like very small number.
Yeah. Okay. So
And yeah,
it is like a snowball effect. In case no one knows, like getting one internship in isolation is actually very important because the next one is that much easier. Theoretically, it's not necessarily
yeah,
true, but it's a very it's a hard snowball. And honestly, like a lot of things in tech, like networking, like learning programming, like getting jobs, is all a snowball effect. Once you know one algorithm, the other that algorithm takes like some logic from that one. It's all somehow a snowball effect that I
everything
found.
builds on each other.
Yeah.
That's all I
So
found.
it's a nice little feature of the program, right? So we're going into our next internship. Now this is like 3 internships is typically like what most people aim for or like try and get. Not everyone gets them, and this is technically your fourth. But I mean, I was counting only the
Currently in
ones
university.
in
Yeah.
in university, right? So, what's our mindset like going in this application period? At this point, are you thinking like maybe I should go Google, Amazon, Netflix? No.
No, I've always been like aside, like this goes into my like political views, but I don't love the big tech companies.
Right, the Google
Um,
do no evil thing getting removed.
yeah, or like Facebook tracking everyone everywhere all the time.
Yeah,
Stuff like that. I don't love that. So the majority of fan companies, I would say, are if I never really wanted to work for them.
really. The
Yeah.
paid wasn't too enticing for you.
No, I've
I
never
guess.
been that interested. I
Okay.
mean, there are companies that are smaller that I think do less evil and also pay the same or
Yeah.
pay, also very good. So it doesn't
Right.
matter a ton. So
Okay.
I've never really tried going after those big companies. Um, but yeah, this one I was like extremely burned out from my last like application cycle. I applied to so many jobs my last application cycle, and I almost didn't get anything. So, like I remember getting my first BlackBerry internship a few weeks before, like maybe like 5 or weeks before my internship was starting. So like really towards the end of the period, and I was cutting it close.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
So
15 apps on this cycle. How fast was this process for you? Would you say?
uh, I applied. I got an interview request the next day. I had my interview the day after. The day after that, they gave me the job.
Within a week. Man, that's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. It was within 5 days. My interview with that was great. It was with these three guys. Um, and they were all very nice, and it just like started out like talking about my experience, and then they started asking me like my thoughts on like programming and stuff like that, and then I like
Ooh.
gave them my opinions, and then it went from like a 30-minute interview to like an hour and 15-minute interview. We're just
Okay.
chatting and shooting the shit. It was a lot of fun.
This was like a CI/CD role, right? I mean, when
uh
I.
Kinda. So my job, so the team that I was working on, they I don't remember their name, but there might have not been even an official name, but essentially it was these three guys who were like utter gods in their careers. Like these
Okay.
people like could do anything ever, you know,
Okay.
and they were just like utter beasts. Like all of them individually were like insanely good, and then
Special forces
together
at BlackBerry.
that's exactly how it felt. So
Okay.
their official job was to set security and standards for automation and pipelines within
Oh
BlackBerry,
man, that's
including DevOps too. But really, what it meant is they did whatever needed to be.
yeah.
Um, so there was no manager on my team. There was only like three high-level engineers, and so they actually had to make an exception for me. They had to find a manager in BlackBerry in my division that wanted to like manage me. I think his name was, oh, I don't remember his first name, but his last name was Knight, and he was a very nice guy. Everyone on my team was a nice guy. Um, and originally they were thinking that my internship would be in Waterloo.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I was thinking about maybe moving to Waterloo, and then I have one of my friends from high school who goes to Waterloo. He's like, "Hey, I have a room for you. Do you want to move?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do." So I moved to Waterloo, and it was a great summer.
Must
Yeah,
have been a lot of fun, honestly, and
yeah, I had a great time.
worked with basically the tech equivalent of special forces. Must have been a
Yeah,
great experience.
I learned a very large amount. Yeah, my job there, I can't actually talk about this.
Okay.
CIBC, or not CIBC, BlackBerry has this process for putting things into production called the change request process.
Okay.
And like it's like a lot of paperwork and stuff. And it takes two people and it can take like at minimum, like if both people are really there intent, it can take like 5 minutes to put this change request process through
Okay.
this whole thing. And it takes two people, and one of them has to be a tech lead or above.
Right.
Um, and so my team, my mentor, I mean, they were all basically my mentors, but the one that I was closest with, Jason, he he was like, we have this process that needs to be automated. There are pre-approved change requests that need to be automated to be able to go through this whole step process. Um, and so I wrote a program in Go because that was the thing that I was learning at the time, and I was really excited about it. Um, and like my team, they also wrote a lot of Go programs, so it just made sense.
Hmm.
But yeah, I spent the entire summer on it, and
Yeah.
it was at times very challenging because Go was really weird about a lot of things. Um, and at times it was extremely challenging because the Jira API is awful. It's
Oh,
terrible.
okay. To this day?
Yeah, the Jira API is still atrocious.
Yeah.
Like it'll always be really, really, really bad until there are some major changes in how Jira fundamentally works.
And
Um,
I mean, now that you've touched on Jira, these past internships, you're working probably on an agile team,
yeah,
taking
I've always
taking
done
take.
Agile.
Okay, I
My
feel like
first,
waterfall's on its way out, right?
yeah, for real. Actually, at CIBC, my team was the only team doing Agile in our division, which was small businesses.
What was everyone else doing?
Waterfall. Yeah, so yeah, we did Kanban, and I just fell in love with Kanban. It's just like
Hmm.
this. It gets rid of like a lot of the fast-paced go 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 code of Scrum, and it makes it much more chill, much more inter-collaboration. At least
Hmm.
that's how I feel about Kanban.
So yeah, okay. And how are you feeling about school right now? This
It's
period in time.
it's it's all right. I don't want to say anything too negative, but I mean,
You
there's
probably
there's
took Sin's
always
course by now.
yeah.
What was the consensus?
The course is really hard.
Yep.
Sin is at times too unforgiving. For example, during the midterm, I by accidentally submitted an assignment instead of the midterm, and Sin would not
Oh,
let me
you did it
re-upload.
with us. I
Yeah,
remember.
yeah,
Okay.
Sin wouldn't let me re-upload my assignment, my midterm, and I was like, sir, like I didn't cheat. Like there's this question that's 3 steps from being completion, but I ran out of time and I left it, and he was like, all right, like I'll give it to you. But overall, I think like the course, like of course it's hard. Um, but saying that, Sin is not awful. Like
Yeah.
he at times he's unreasonable. Times he says things that's a little like you shouldn't say that. But he does spend the time and effort to make sure that you like if you want the resources, it's there for you.
Okay.
You know, he his office hours, he's always open. You could send him an email, whatever, and he'll answer your questions. Um, he was. I always felt like he was very helpful when you needed him to be helpful.
Quick aside, when are you taking 454?
Probably in the fall.
Oh my god, we're gonna take it together.
Yeah, us and Jeremy.
Okay. There's only 20 slots, so maybe like snipe that when you can.
Oh, yeah. I gotta look at my enrollment periods.
Yeah, okay, so anyways, after the aside, uh, okay, so next hiring period, do we have any changes? Like, you want to work in the U.S.? You want to like any additional adjustments? Anything?
Yeah, I was very much into like, I, I don't want to be in Windsor. I would be open to working in Toronto. I don't really want to do web dev.
Okay.
I was thinking about web dev, and I'm like, I don't really want to. I don't want to work in Python anymore. I mean, it's just like I read so much like awfully written Python
Oh
code,
my god, man! Don't get
and
me
it's
started
like
with Java.
I was like, I don't even want to touch this. Anyway,
Yeah.
so my friend Kalen, he was the guy at Waterloo at the extra room,
Hmm.
and he was like a very good friend of mine since high school. He got an internship at this robotics company called Trexo Robotics,
Yep.
and like they're like it seemed like they're very cool stuff. The company started by these two Waterloo grads,
Hmm.
and it's like they have a beautiful story. Like I watched the TED talk of their story, and I actually cried a little bit. Like it's very sweet. Um, yeah, for
Okay.
those unfamiliar, the story is Manmeet. He is the CEO. His nephew was born with a cerebral palsy,
Okay.
and he's like, my nephew can never walk, and my nephew will just be in this wheelchair, and that's awful for kids to be in
Mm-hmm.
wheelchairs. Like adults have like assistive walkers and stuff like that, but kids don't have much of anything.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was like, we got to change this. So he spent time with Rahul, who is his CTO and now like his good friend at university, and they built a robot. that like you strap kids' legs into it that are disabled, and it helps them walk.
Mm.
Um, and that's like a beautiful story. Like who wouldn't want to try to be part of that, you know?
Hmm.
And so I was very excited for my interview. I actually felt like I bonded. I straight up bonded.
What were
Um,
the questions like?
Questions were all right. They asked me a few questions. They were like, is it better to be smarter or work harder? And I was very much in the mindset of like it's good to be a bit of both. Like you want smarter employees because the smarter they are, the better their solutions are. But you don't want someone so smart that they don't roll up their sleeves and do the actual work when it needs to be done.
Hmm.
Um, anyway, that's like my take on the questions. But they asked like a tech question, like a coding question. I
Leak
couldn't.
code. What difficulty would you estimate?
Um, More like a medium, but it was not an algorithm question. It was more math. It
Oh,
was like I honestly probably shouldn't actually say the question because
yeah,
I
you
know
probably.
they still use it.
Okay.
Um, but I didn't get it. And then they're like, okay, we'll leave it open for 20 minutes after the interview, like And then 20 minutes, I spent time like thinking about all the hints that they gave me, and I remember writing it down and like trying to like draw diagrams and stuff like that to break it down. And eventually, I did get it.
Oh, okay.
Um, yeah, so I got the job. Um, and it's in Mississauga. They actually just moved offices,
Okay.
so it's way further in Mississauga. Um, so I live in Toronto, and
Yep.
for those who don't know, Mississauga is a suburb of Toronto, right next to the city.
Hmm.
Public transit between them is really bad, so I don't know how to drive. I probably should learn, but
Okay.
growing up in Toronto, you don't need to know how to drive. Like the subway goes everywhere. Yeah, so I've just been lazy about that for the past few years. That's totally on me. Um, yeah, so taking public transit to work was pretty awful. It's pretty bad. It was like an hour and 15 minutes
Oh.
on average, one direction. And it was like the middle of winter, and at times it got like -20, -30, and it was like freezing snow was going. And for anyone who's taking Mississauga buses, they're called My Way. They're really bad. They're like almost never on time. And on the TTC, that's the Toronto subway,
Yep.
or in the buses and stuff like that. If you like want to know when a bus comes, you have a number that you can just text, and it
Yep.
tells you how long the bus
Yep.
till the bus comes, and it's like updated in real time too. So like actually, it's not just like with the schedule; it like actually is the
Yep.
numbers. So Mississauga doesn't have that. They have a number that you have to call and
Oh.
talk, and it's like I'm not doing that. And it's like I can barely use my phone because it's freezing out, and it
Yep.
was really bad. And then Mississauga, like their color scheme for like their bus stop posts
Okay.
is like gray, like a light gray on silver on like with white text and light orange, and it's like this is barely readable during the day. Nighttime, it's unreadable, like completely unreadable.
Okay.
And so I was like, so Mississauga Transit, 1 out of 10 experience. It was completely awful. And multiple times my bus driver he would like see me at the station. And by the way, they're required to stop at the station. That's the whole point of bus stations, that they for sure stop there.
Yes.
He would see me and then he'd keep going. It's like, and then I'd be like 20 minutes late to work. And so whatever. Um,
Interesting. Anything about the job specifically?
the job was all right. It was originally in a Spring Boot for a server that goes on the robot.
Oh my god.
Um, and then the past two co-op terms worked on this robot, or worked on this server. And by the time it actually got to like production, like, oh, it's finished, we're gonna put it on the robot. We were doing testing on the robot, and it was like 5 minutes startup for the server on the robot, and it's like this is no bueno. Like,
Oh, I think we lost Ryan again.
oh damn.
Are
Oh,
you
can you hear me?
back? All right. So
All
what
right.
happened after the 5 minute?
Yeah, so like 30 seconds is like that's bad. 5 minutes,
Mm.
like not possible. Like this, like it's not gonna happen. Like we needed a solution. So they just hired this full-time guy, Merlin. Shout out to Merlin. He was a great coworker, and he was a great, good time.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, Merlin was like straight up, like he's crazy smart.
Okay.
And he just started working there a week before, and he's like already up to speed on everything, and he's just like going to town. He's like crazy, bro. Um, yeah, so he came up with an idea using this thing called Graal VM, Graal VM.
Okay.
And essentially, it's like this runtime translator thing that translate like Java bytecode to native executable code.
Oh man, we're going
Um,
low level.
oh yeah, and for anyone who's used Spring, there is a very large amount of magic.
Yep.
And so trying to get Spring to work on this, like there was an internal team working on it, like at Spring Boot, working on this, and it was like very alpha, like experimental phases, and we got most of the way there, but sometimes operations would segfault and we wouldn't understand it.
Yep.
And it was just like, this is a magic word and we have no idea what's going on. We're not going to like disassemble the executable and pull through the code. Like, it's not going to happen.
Right.
And so Merlin was very versed in Go, and I am too. And so we made the decision to switch over to Go. Um,
As
so
usual,
that
Java fails once again.
Yeah, Java, like saying that Java shit the bed is like an understatement. Like it's bad, bad. So and then we just spent the remaining of our time rewriting the code in Go. Eventually, I worked on a Wi-Fi server on the robot. I
Okay,
did
that's
not
cool.
finish it, but I got a bunch of it. Wi-Fi is really weird on like Linux systems. Like most people will know that if they've like done
Yeah.
low-level Wi-Fi stuff. Um, Dbus is also very weird, and Dbus and Go don't really get along well. And there's like been efforts to like switch over network manager code, like network manager Dbus bindings over to Go, and it's just like they're like missing huge chunks or stuff. So if you look on
Okay.
my GitHub, there is a fork of the most popular one where I added a few things here or there, and that's because you know the actual version didn't support what we needed at work.
Okay.
And I made a PR to fix it, but it's been there for like 5 months. It's just been
I'm
sitting
guessing
there.
no one cares.
No one cares. And so at Trexo, they just use my repository now. They like point towards it in their dependencies.
And it was between this internship and the next one, which we'll talk about later, is you became head of tech at the Computer Science Society, right?
No, this happened years ago. So this happened during my first CIB or my first BlackBerry internship. I became
Oh.
head of technology.
Oh, you did. Okay. And
Yeah,
this
so I
is
can talk
like
about
when
that.
Eric and those guys graduated.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So, um, Jose, my friend Jose, we went to the Tyler the Creator Igor tour concert in
Oh.
September 2019. So it was a
Wow.
great time. And he was on CSS as I mentioned, and he was talking to me about like what CSS does, and I was like, like I want to do CSS, but I don't care much for like the personable roles. Like I don't care much for like event coordinator. Like no shade to event coordinators, they do a great job and they're completely necessary. Just didn't interest me,
Yep.
you know. And so I was talking about this to Jose, and Jose said like you can just do what Eric does, and I was like, well, what does Eric do? And he's like, well, he's the developer. He does all the tech stuff, and I'm like, whoa, that like blew my mind. I was like, I want this so bad, like so bad. Um, yeah, so I told Eric that that I wanted this, and he was like, like all right, whatever. Um, and then they just announced that they wanted to do a career advisor role, and he DM'd me like, hey, you should do the career advisor role. And I was like, actually, I'm gonna apply for your job when it opens up in 2 weeks. And he's like, all right. So then, yeah, so then I applied, and there was two applicants, me and Amon,
Yep.
and they gave it to us both because we were both needed.
Okay.
And
And
yeah, that's basically how I got started at
and I
CSS.
think we skipped over your Grizz Hacks project.
Yeah, so that was second year, my second year. I
Mm.
did, this is the only project on my GitHub because I've been lazy to update it. Um, but I went to a bunch of hackathons that year. Where did I go? I went to Grizz Hacks.
Yep.
It's at the University of Rochester. I always forget the name. It's in Rochester, Michigan. Oakland
Yep.
University, that's it. And that was a lot of fun. I went with a few friends. It was a great time.
Hmm.
We made this thing called mood pizza. It was really stupid. It's a very dumb idea. Essentially, we were like, oh, if you like we want something to like recommend you a pizza that you know you like for what kind of mood you're in before a sports game. And it's like it's a very convoluted, like stupid idea. It was a lot of fun to
It's
make.
like a cookie catcher.
Yeah, exactly. Um, and I remember talking to the judges, and I was like, like we use advanced ML. It was like an if statement. Like it was
The
like
ML diagram just being an if statement.
yeah, so then so we ended up we were thinking like we were not going to win this prize, like we might as well just leave. So we left, and then apparently 10 minutes after we left, we won. Um, but it was the only category that had no prize. Yeah.
I mean,
Um, yeah, and then I think about 2 weeks after that, I went to MHAX at UMich. I went with Ekjo. Forget his name right now, his last name.
Multani.
Um, yeah, and I mean, Ekjo's a home. It was great to
Yeah.
work with him. I had a fun time. Ekjo made a banger logo for our project. Shout out to Ekjo. He's a total homie. Yeah, that
Like
was a
most
lot of
people in
fun.
CSS, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I had a fun time doing that. I also helped try to get UWin robotics off the ground that year. This was second year.
Oh, right.
Um,
I was in that for a little.
yeah, there's a whole bunch of drama about why it's not off the ground, but we're thinking about bringing it back.
Ooh.
Yeah, so then so I went to those, and then after the break, or after winter break, second semester in second year, I got into 8 hackathons in 8 weekends, and I really thought about going to them. But I didn't, which was the right decision. So it started with Delta Hacks. That was at McMaster, and
Didn't that get canceled? Or no, that was like the really shitty one, wasn't
it was awful. It was really bad. And Bailey's car broke down on the way there,
it?
and his girlfriend at the time had to drive us to my house in Toronto because we were staying the night here, then driving from my house in Toronto to Hamilton. Needless to say, it was not a great weekend. Delta Hacks was really bad overall. They ran out of food, they ran out of snacks, they ran out of stickers and judges. Like there's like a laundry list of things that went wrong. They did no waves or multiple places to get food. So I think there was like 500, 600 people there. And I was all
Just
in a
trying to get
single
food.
line. Yeah, it's a single line to get food. And I was in the Slack channel hey, like this is stupid. Like we should just have like waves in multiple locations. And I remember they were like, you shouldn't be mean to us. We're volunteers. It's like, that doesn't mean anything. You messed up. Like just admit mistake, move on, fix your stuff. Um, yeah, so I was very unhappy, and they quote unquote fixed it by adding a second food station. Still no waves, and the second food station was across from the first food station. They're like right next to each other.
Okay.
But the lines, they had a single exit point,
Yep.
so essentially it's like a single line again, and didn't solve anything. Um,
They converged.
yeah, and anyway, I remember Wahid ordered pizza, and it came before I got my food, and I was in line.
He ordered pizza from outside the hackathon.
Yeah, like he ordered just like pizza or something, and then he was in line, and he's like, "Oh, my food's here," and he just like walked in with the pizza, and I was like, "I'm still in line for my food."
Yeah. Anyways, you
Yeah,
went to hack Harvard, make Harvard. Sorry,
Make Harvard. Yeah,
make
that
Harvard.
was the next weekend.
Okay.
And that was 10 out of 10. Greatest hackathon experience I've had. It's a lot of fun. I met a lot of people.
What's the acceptance rate on that? I'm trying to go.
I have no idea. It was not very big, if I recall. There was about like 200 hackers there.
What?
But it was a lot of fun. It was at the Harvard, I think the Northwestern building. There was like fossils like hanging from the ceiling,
Oh my
and
god.
it was crazy. Like the first night, I like slept on the couch, and I like looked up, and there was like this dinosaur, and it's like, oh my god, it was insane. It was very cool. I got to see a bunch of Harvard museums. I mean, I didn't really do much. But
And in
my
case you guys
team
didn't know,
did
his
something.
travel was subsidized for
Yeah.
at least Harvard.
Yeah, it was partially subsidized. And then so my team made something called the Harvard helmet. Essentially, it was an open source EEG headset. For
Okay.
those who don't know, EEG I think stands for electronic encephalogram. Not completely sure about that, but essentially it's like in movies they like attach all the electrodes to your head and it like reads all the readings and stuff like that. Is that machine? So Sam, he was like it was his idea. Um, he like spent time like he brought his 3D printer. Sam is like straight up everyone on my team was like an absolute total beast in their industry.
Yeah.
Um, and Sam like he brought a 3D printer and he was like spent time like 3D printing these modular parts that are it's essentially like connects, like the Lego knockoff or like snap
Yep.
things together. It's essentially the same thing but it's 3D printed. And then it had like these special modules that you would put in like the electrodes. And then he bought this chip beforehand that is the same one that they use in like industrial EEG headsets.
Okay.
Um, uh, and it was going well, and then the magic smoke came out of the chip, and it was dead. And so I was like, all right, we can't really do much.
Jesus.
Yeah, I spent time with the other software engineer on the team, like trying to maybe think about what the firmware could look like and the like how would this all be networked together and like I wrote some like basic stuff, but it went nowhere.
Okay.
Um,
I mean, you were at
and
Harvard
then
anyway, so can't
yeah,
take
we,
away.
we made yeah exactly. The food though was crazy, and I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure Red Bull sponsored the hackathon because there
Okay.
was Red Bull everywhere, like Red Bull fridges, like everything. It was like crazy. Yeah, I ate a lot of food, and it was all very good. Um, yeah, had a very fun time. Made a lot of friends. Uh, yeah, and I got 2 interviews out of it.
Okay. And
At
can you break it down for me? How did you get these interviews?
all right, yeah, I can. So it was demo time, and this guy he came across. His name was Geronimo, or I think it is. I think it's a Geronimo Becker. I have LinkedIn with him. No, okay, I don't remember his name. I think it was that, but I'm not completely.
Okay.
Um, But he was like, tell me about this. And so I was talking to him about this, and I was like, if I were, and he was like, with open source EEG as it is, like, what would you change? And I was like, the data processing libraries for EEG data is awful. It can be optimized, and they can be way better. And then he was just like very impressed, and he's like, here's my card. Send me an email when you get home.
Ooh.
So I shot him an email, and he's like, yes, I'd love to chat. Um, and the chat went really well. It was very nice. It was very short. But the pandemic was looming and didn't really go anywhere.
That's
So
fair.
then he recommended me to another friend of his who was doing research at one of the Harvard labs.
Okay.
Um, and they were looking for interns, so I talked with him a little bit. But again, it didn't really go anywhere. So I
Hmm.
didn't I didn't get the jobs, but
Still networking.
yeah, it still was a great experience, and I'd totally do it again. Yeah, so I went to those. Those were my only in-person hackathons. I tried to go to a few other ones, but I was very hackathoned out, and then the pandemic was like a month away. So
Okay. So, yeah. Okay. Uh, all right. So we're moving on to your next and last internship. Uh, hopefully last, or maybe last.
who
Okay.
knows?
So talk to me about the big one. I guess.
The
Huh.
big boy. Yeah. So
Nvidia.
NVIDIA. So Abdul Aziz, we
Yep.
we all may know him. He got an internship at NVIDIA last semester,
Yep.
and I was in Waterloo. It was in January. I was visiting some friends in Waterloo. I was staying with them for the week.
Hmm.
And I sent him a message like, hey, like I want to apply to jobs at NVIDIA. Like, can you recommend me? And he's like, yeah. So he's like, write, these paragraphs on like these 3 questions. So I did. And then he's like, what jobs do you specifically want to apply to? So I sent him like 3 jobs that I really, really wanted.
Yep.
One was like a Kubernetes cloud job.
Okay.
Another one was like low level security, and then the one that I have now, which was like GFN or GeForce Now security.
Ooh, it's cool.
So I was like these are my dream jobs, like they're crazy, like they're so cool, but I'm probably not gonna get them. So I had this internship season. I had many interviews. I interviewed at Tesla, Duolingo,
Tesla
like a
in
whole bunch of
Canada?
Tesla US.
Okay.
So I got far into Tesla US, like Duolingo, like wherever. Um, and then I got this one, and it was going really well. I had the first internship or first interview with my manager, and we were vibing. It was a very good time. We were like talking about all that stuff, and then he immediately went into like, oh, you could be working on this if you get this job. You could be working on this if you get this job, and it was very good.
Okay.
Um,
He was
and
definitely sold
then
on you, is what you're saying.
yeah, that's how it felt.
Yeah.
And then I had my next interview like a week and a bit later,
Hmm.
and it was a hard one. So the guy doing it, he's like a distinguished engineer at NVIDIA. Like he's like one of the chief like architects of like a GeForce Now. Like
Hmm.
he's like the top of top levels.
Yep.
Um, and he was just like going in on anything technical.
Yep.
He was like, "I see you talk about containers. How do they work?" And
Mm.
I was like, "I know a little bit, but not that much, you know." And I tried, and he was like, "All right, you know." So we moved on, and actually the first question he asked was, "When I type in, like Google.com, what happens in my browser?"
Like
Um,
the request?
yeah,
Like,
like all the networks, like all the network traffic,
okay.
like how, like going top down. And he very specifically asked if I open Wireshark, what would it look like to me? And that's a very good question. And they're different questions. Um, because, you won't see the HTTP traffic over Wireshark because it's all through HTTPS. You won't even see the DNS traffic
Hmm.
because it goes over DNS over,
And you knew
or
this
like
at the time.
DNS over HTTP. Yeah, I knew this at the time.
Okay.
This was, I mean, it was only like 6 months ago.
Yeah, that's the thing. You lose like the scale of time when you're talking about like six different internships. Yeah.
So I knew all of this. I took in a networking course at my high school when I was like 16. So I've known networking for like quite a while.
Okay.
Um, so I think I answered that very, very well. And at the time, I was like really interested in DNS over HTTP, um, which is like a newer protocol. I was like,
Interesting niche.
yeah, I was like really interested in like how it works and like all that stuff. And so, I talked a lot about that. And I think that was one of the things where he's like, hmm.
Hmm.
And then the last question he asked me was, for those who don't know, the semester, or for most people, I would say, who don't know, the semester before I worked at Trexo, I was taking a networking security course at UWindsor,
Yep.
and they had a very open-ended project that I spent the semester on. They're like, do whatever you want, but if you want to do something cool or like something on this approved list, you have to talk to the prof. So I was like, I could make a ransomware bot, and it would be cool. So that's exactly what I did.
Okay.
I made my own ransomware bot and a command and control server, and it was very cool. Uh, I called it "I'm a Cry" after WannaCry, but it's a stupid. Yeah, I'm actually like extremely proud of it.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah, it had like very good like data encryption throughput, like 500 megabytes per second. On disk read and write speed goes along with it. And then it does the entire file system, or it can do the entire file system, and it's a concurrent too, so it can do multiple things at once. I'm very
Amazing.
proud of it. At the point, yeah. So I put that on my resume, and Max, I just said his first name, but that's his first name. He was asking me, like how, like why did you do this? How does it work? And I basically walked him through like over the years I've listened to like podcasts or read articles on botnets and how they've gotten caught.
Hmm.
And I one of the big common threads is all the bots send all their traffic at the same time.
Yep.
Even like heartbeats, um, and that's not a good idea. So I was like, if we could randomly syncopate the time of the heartbeats, like that's one way to get around that.
Hmm.
Essentially, just like time dot random or whatever,
Yep.
you know. But it was good enough. It's good enough for that. And I like talked about how like I boiled down like how botnets work to like or ransomware bots how to like their most simple terms, and it's essentially a state machine. And then from there, it's just implementing the individual parts of the state machine.
It's insane, right?
Thank you. Yeah,
So,
so they were extremely impressed.
so that's what you're
But
doing right now in Toronto.
yeah, I'm actually working remotely because my team's in California.
Okay.
Uh, the job is cool. I actually cannot talk about what I'm working on.
Oh.
Um,
Okay.
it's a very hush hush.
Oh,
But
that's cool.
needless to say, it's cool, and I really enjoy it. And if I get this for full time, I would be very
Oh, leaking
happy.
the future. Okay.
I'm hoping. I'm hoping.
Okay, you'd like this full time, but would you like it in California? Like you'd like move to California?
I would have to move to California, or I think I'd have to move to California.
Is that like against
I
your wishes, kinda, or
No, not really.
no issues with working in the U.S.? Okay.
I don't have any major issues working in the U.S. Some people who may know, my girlfriend, she's American, and she's also in the States.
Oh,
So it would be nice to be closer to her.
get that green card, bro.
Yeah, for real. But yeah, like Nvidia, it's a big company, and I very much drink the company Kool-Aid.
Oh yeah.
Uh, but I see why like a lot of people drink the company Kool-Aid. There's a lot of good things about working for Nvidia. There's a
Yep.
lot of crazy perks.
I mean, it's up
Um,
there. Like it's definitely not Fang, but like everyone like
yeah,
no one would say no to a fucking Nvidia internship. Like it's
yeah, I mean, they pay, I would say, I mean, like a little less than Fang, of
yep.
course. But I think the work is really interesting.
It's highly
Like,
specialized too. To be
yeah.
fair, yeah.
And it's like my job is not just defined by one thing. So
Yep.
a big thing that like my team was very happy about was that like I have very large interdisciplinary experience. Like
Hmm.
I've done CI/CD and automation, I've done like web dev, I've done security, I've done, whatever.
And that's
Um,
the power of internships too. Like
mhm.
you can diversify by not even taking like that much of a different role. Like
Oh, yeah.
yeah, and to and to further iterate on the point, like I don't think you did like the same thing ever at two different internships. You made like two web apps though, to be fair,
Yeah, I've made more than a few web apps.
at a jump.
Um, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, web dev was the thing I was in for a while, and I still don't mind web dev. It's not what I want to do for a job.
yeah. Okay,
But my job is really cool so far. I'm really happy about it.
okay.
Um, I'd be very happy to get it full time. But I think Nvidia is a really good company to be at overall. Like, I don't mean to like be, being an advertisement for Nvidia, but like a big thing that I see, and the big thing that NVIDIA prides itself on is there's very little job hopping. People don't go to NVIDIA and
Yep.
then like
Turnover.
after a few years leave and then just like be gone from NVIDIA forever. Well, a lot of times they come back or
Okay,
they change roles inside the company. That is like an extremely easy thing to do at
that's
NVIDIA
cool.
compared to like other companies.
Okay, and that being said, how are you thinking about what are you thinking about like in person school next couple semesters? Then we graduate.
I'm looking forward to it. I mean,
Honestly, I feel like we've been robbed a little.
yeah, a little bit. Fingers crossed I get the job so I don't have to worry about,
Yeah.
applications and stuff. The dream is just relaxing, going to as many events as I can,
Yep. Hackathons.
conferences, hackathons, whatever.
Get those UWindsor buses running.
For real, for real.
Okay,
I'm looking forward to the year.
so not quite at the end yet. Gotta go through some common questions because we have a highly specialized guest here, six different internships. I gotta ask all the common questions. I'm sure everyone's heard these before, but if you're new, these are very important. So, give me a couple things that you did in your university career, aside from courses, I guess, which everyone has to do, that really helped you getting these internships.
Projects, making things, being extracurricular, you know, going out of my way and, being involved in student life is a big one.
Yes.
But the biggest thing is making things.
Hmm.
Like it doesn't matter what it is. You just got to make things, and
Yep.
people will see that.
Okay. And second, I'd ask you if you had to. Okay, let's just assume we go back in time. Uh, you're back at your like you just started university again, but you have all the knowledge of what you've done now. What would you do this time to change or do it better?
I honestly don't know. That's a good question. Um, I think if I was back in first year, I wouldn't eat in the crock as much. So there's a few places to eat on campus. The crock is one of the good ones.
Okay.
But it's all bar food.
Okay.
So I ate a lot of bar food. There's another one. I don't remember what it's called. But there's another one also in Vanier Hall that does like home cooked meals. They just have really weird hours. I think if I would go back to first year, I would spend more time eating those home cooked meals instead of the
Yeah.
pubby meals.
Anything career wise, or do you think you took as good of a chance you could on the first try?
Uh, I don't know. Maybe I would try leak code a bit more, but I don't enjoy it. I don't
Uh,
think I would enjoy that many jobs that require leak code skills.
okay. Now I gotta get your thoughts on like other topics like related to the job. So, give me your feelings about like reaching out to recruiters, cold messaging, cold emailing.
Uh, I did it a lot before I got the NVIDIA job. That semester, I like cold emailed maybe
And if you recall
15.
correctly, he got the most interviews that semester, right?
I did, yeah.
Coincidentally, he also had 5 internships to back it up. But
Yeah, I reached out to a lot of different recruiters, and over the years, like I've made like a little list in my head of like cool companies that it could be cool to work for.
yep.
Ones that do cool tech or are very good to the community or whatever. And I basically cold emailed all of those companies.
Oh, I mean, for someone like you, I'm guessing their success rate would be higher than someone who's newer. But what would you say your success rate was on converting on a cold message?
Uh, my success rate was basically zero. I'm
Okay.
gonna be honest. But I mean, it was good to reach out to those places.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I got responses like, "Oh, we're not looking for anything," but sometimes they would, I would sit down and chat with one of the engineers.
Mm.
For
Right.
example, No Red Ink. They're a company. They have a very large community aspect about their company.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they one of their engineers gives talks like all the time.
Yeah.
Um, and they're very big on like functional programming. They do like Haskell backend and Elm front end, and I like functional programming.
Yep.
So it was always been in my
Not an
head.
object-oriented fan.
No, not even, not even a little bit.
The slender man.
I mean, maybe a
Listen,
little bit.
listen. If I wasn't working for a certain company right now, I would be saying some things too. But
I hear that. But yeah, I mean, cold emailing, it's a good idea. But the number one thing to ask yourself is what is something that sets you apart? Why should the recruiter see your email and respond?
yes.
You know,
Okay, so
and
we were
so
touching on this too. I'm sorry for cutting it, but
no worries.
I gotta frame this, and I'm gonna reiterate another time because a lot of this stuff gets reiterated many times, but it's better for the newer viewer. Instead of emailing a recruiter and telling them what they can do for you, please lead off with what you can do for the company, even if it's not like technical. Like, say I'm like I don't have much going on. At least say you're like really willing to learn and make sure you can back it up. Like, say like you do this extra or this extra. Like, just doing your courses and praying is usually not enough, especially at bigger companies.
Absolutely. I would say that it's that getting a job with only doing your courses is an exception, not the rule.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, like I just was like, hey, here's what I've done. Here's what I'm interested in. I see that your company does things like this. I want to be a part of this. Here's what we can do. It's like I
Okay.
want to be an internship. Like blah blah blah. I mean, a lot of times I got responses. So I mean, there's just no harm. I wish all the companies that responded, I wish them well, and the ones that didn't responded, maybe not. No, that's a joke. That's not serious.
Okay, so okay, so here's another topic I get to talk to you about, where I can't really talk too much about other people with, or talk to other people with about. Uh, what are your thoughts on internships in the United States? Because I know you have friends, and you also got interviewed for one. You definitely know what it's like. Success rates. Give me what it is for. Okay, let's before I say anything else, for a Canadian citizen or permanent resident with no U.S. visa, like nothing, basically nothing.
Yeah. So my job that I have now, the NVIDIA job, was supposed to be in California.
Yes.
And I was very sad when it wasn't in California.
Okay.
But I think it's a good idea to do internships in the States. It
Yes.
is big money, big money.
Yes.
It can be. I mean, it's a great experience overall. Like
However,
getting to experience another place, during your internship, it should be one of the highest priorities for your internship, like
mhm,
checklist,
right. Okay. So
because it gives you a lot of experience of where you want to do, what you want to be, or whatever.
you know those two boxes that like you have to tick. I'm gonna explain it a little further. So when you're applying to a U.S. job, there's always like those two boxes like I'm legally allowed to work in the United States and B, I do not require sponsorship for the U.S. What do you tick? Because this is actually pretty
Um,
important information.
I have for a while I was ticking yes, like I was. Now I tick no,
You're not allowed to
because
work in the United States.
I'm not. I do require visa sponsorship.
No, what about the first one? The first one's always yes, yes, right?
Oh, yeah, I mean, like, am I legally allowed? Yeah, I'm legally allowed to, but I do need sponsorship to be
Yeah,
able to
okay.
do
So the first one's always yes, and
it.
then okay. So the second one is so especially with interns, it's a J1 visa typically, unless your company does TNs, which only like
Tesla?
Tesla has one loophole, right? So like they use
Yeah,
that.
that they abuse constantly.
So they can get so basically any job that uses a TN, you can tick like yes to. Like I don't really need sponsorship because what a TN is, it's basically like you roll up to you roll up to border. You're like, yo, I got this offer. They don't have to like file out like an H1B or anything, which has limited slots and like they can't really guarantee too much on. So that's the whole idea behind TNs. That's why I would recommend official career advisor recommendation. Tick that you don't require a sponsorship if it's a TN job, which is most full time jobs, not internships. But that's for another time. Uh,
Absolutely.
uh, but yeah, I mean, friends in the U.S. like they're just making a shit ton more, like
Yeah, I have
an
a
actual shit ton more.
I'm not making a little amount of money at Nvidia. I'm not
Yeah,
gonna lie, but my friends in the States are maybe making sometimes two times what I'm making,
that's
and
like
it's
fintech money though. It has to be right.
nah.
Oh my
Now
god.
with conversion, it comes out to about two times, but it's
Oh right. Okay.
it's pretty crazy. Some startups in the States, especially in Silicon Valley or like Austin, they pay like monster money. It's
Yeah,
like this is unbelievable.
for internships too. The only sad thing is we're kind of at a disadvantage because of the visa thing, but it shouldn't stop the people from trying. It's only how
No,
much of a
absolutely.
headache you want to go through.
Yeah, and also like if the company's big enough, you will have no headache. They'll just do it for you.
Oh, important information. Okay.
Yeah, so I interviewed with Comerica Bank when I was in second year.
Okay.
I actually got that interview from GrizzHacks.
Ooh.
But they were really weird. They were like, if we're gonna sponsor you, you're gonna have to pay for all your visa sponsorship yourself and do it. And it's like I'm not gonna do that. Like I don't want this job. Like it's not that good. Yeah.
Okay. Another thing I want to ask you about. How important do you think internships are in general to a
In
CS degree?
general, okay. Extremely important. There is a reason that Waterloo is one of the best in Canada,
Yep.
and I and many of my friends who go to Waterloo don't think it's the classes.
It's
It is
Waterloo Works, right?
it's Waterloo Works, baby. It's co-op department. They might not be the best, but everyone knows Waterloo. Like to
Yep.
put in comparison, these are rough numbers. I don't have the actual numbers. I think like round one, like a UWindsor was like maybe like 500 jobs.
Yeah.
Um, my friends let me go through their Waterloo Works round three, and there was like 20,000 jobs.
Oh my god.
Like it's absurd,
Jesus
and
Christ.
that's just for engineering, and it's crazy. And like Trexo Robotics, the company that I worked for,
Yep.
I literally would have. There was no job application not on Waterloo Works. The only reason I got the job is because I
Yep.
had a friend who went to Waterloo and recommended me,
Yep.
and like that's
I have
how it is for a
a
lot of
similar experience at
startups.
Oracle. Yeah.
Yeah, there's tons of places like the big thing that sets Waterloo apart is like I mean like some of the classes are really hard. you
Yep.
know, of course, and like they only take the best students. But I think the big Waterloo superpower is co-op.
Yep. Right. And okay, this leads us into our next question here. How down on yourself should you be if you're attending a smaller university?
You shouldn't,
Right.
uh, unless like you go to Harvard, then you shouldn't. It doesn't matter where you go to school.
Okay.
Like I'm gonna be straight up honest. Like we go to UWindsor. It's a very small school with not a very good reputation. Um, but I mean, a lot of people are doing very well from UWindsor.
Making it work, right?
Making it work exactly. Like I'm at every internship, they ask me like how I enjoy school, and I'm like, eh, it's you know, school is school, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But like at the end of the day, that doesn't matter.
Right.
Like in 3 years, they're just gonna see a degree. They're not gonna see what
Mm-hmm.
school. Like you know, like unless you go to like I said, like Harvard. Like unless you go to a top school, it doesn't matter where you go to school,
Mm-hmm.
especially in Ontario. In
Right.
Ontario, CS across the board is fairly standard at almost every university.
Mm-hmm.
I think with you know a few exceptions, maybe
BC, Ottawa,
Waterloo. Yeah,
Toronto, something like that.
exactly.
There's like an upper echelon, but like it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, like unless you go to like Waterloo or U of T or Queens or whatever, it barely matters.
Yeah. Okay. And maybe some miscellaneous stuff like let me even think like I feel like I've asked you so much at this point.
All right,
Uh
I have something that I specifically want to say.
okay, go ahead.
I've seen a lot of stuff recently about people picking things because like picking technologies because they're relevant. It's a
Right.
bad idea. Very bad idea. Technologies are tools. They solve problems. Understanding what the problem they solve and how they solve them is way more important than the tool or how it's used at jobs. For
Mm-hmm.
example, Kubernetes. You know, Kubernetes is made by Google. Everyone wants to use Kubernetes. It's huge. It's the hottest thing.
Yep.
But most of the time, people don't need Kubernetes unless you're
Probably don't even
deploying
not need
things.
Docker, right?
Yeah, like unless you really understand why containerization is needed, then you will not need it.
Right.
And that goes across the board for all technologies. You know,
Mm-hmm.
Rust is really cool because it's so hot, but if you don't need memory safety and speed, why are you using this?
Yeah, to add on to that, I got my Oracle job purely by showing off a Python project, and uh, I'm I'm probably don't have to convince you that Oracle does not use Python.
Oracle and Python. Yeah, I mean Oracle, Java, Java, Java. You know,
Yeah, it's insane. But another question that I just thought of: what are most students doing wrong in CS degrees across? Like for people who want like career, like let's drop the people who want to do masters. There's something else. Who want careers outside of right out of the gate? What are they
I
doing wrong?
actually would not excuse masters. People want to do their masters.
Really?
Yeah. So to explain why, so all the other interns on my team at NVIDIA, they go to Carnegie Mellon. For some people who don't know, Carnegie Mellon University, CMU, is like number two CS school in the world, like number one cybersecurity school. Like they're like it's insane, you know.
Yep.
And like one of my the other interns on my team, he was like, I have like my grades were all right, but they weren't insane, you know. But I had a lot of internships, and I had a lot of passion and projects, and they saw that. They saw that my grades were all right, but you know, like not crazy. And they
Mm-hmm.
saw all my experience, and they're like, "We don't care much about your grades. You did fine enough on the GRE. We care about who you are, why you want to be here."
That was for a master's program too.
Master's program, yeah. And the same things goes with for PhD. Though I would say PhD might be a bit different, and I'm not an expert on any of this, so take my advice with masters and PhDs with a grain of salt.
Have you thought about doing a master's, by the way?
Yeah, for a while I was really gung ho on doing a master's. You know, my dream school is MIT and EECS.
Ooh.
And then I went to the Harvard hackathon, and one of the people on my team went to MIT, or I mean, he still goes to MIT. And he was telling me about like his life. It's just like it's constant work, and it's like that's cool. I don't want that. I wanna chill a little bit. Um, but now I've been thinking about maybe doing a master's because Carnegie Mellon is my new dream school, And
how would you get it? Because I'm guessing you probably don't get in just off of grades, right? You're probably going to get an interview.
Yeah.
Regarding work, probably.
Yeah, there's a bunch of things. So the first thing is I have to take the GRE.
Yeah.
I don't remember what that stands for, but it's essentially like this test for grad school for
US.
more STEM. I don't think it's actually only US. I think it might be Canada, but not 100% sure on that.
Okay.
Anyway, it's like a test that you have to take. It's like the LSATs or like the MCATs. But instead of that, it's like for techie stuff. So it's mostly, as a Sarker would say, high school math. It is a lot of like high school math, but it's still very difficult.
Okay.
And so that's the first step. I would have to take the GRE.
Right.
And then after that, I would apply, and then if I fingers crossed,
so like write that essay for every single school.
Yeah. Oh. And then I'd have to get an interview, and then when I get the interview, my friend who goes to MIT told me, if you ever get like an interview at top schools, lie. Say you're going to do academics, like straight up just lie, because top schools, they want people who are academics because they make schools look much better than people who just go into industry. Like, of course, there's the off chance of like a person becoming a billionaire and donating like half their fortune to the universities, but that's a very small percentage. It's a bigger percentage of the big schools, but not nearly that big.
Okay.
And so,
interesting tip.
Lie and say you want to do academics for the rest of your life.
Ryan says lie on your resume, lie on your apps.
That's it. Yeah, 100%. I'm joking. Please don't take this out of context. The sun is right in my face. I'm gonna move back a little.
Okay.
And so so I'd have to do that, and then I'd have an interview. And if I do well in the interview, I think you get in, but I'm not 100% sure.
Okay. So you're actually I didn't flag you as someone like who was interested in a master's,
I'm not interested in academics. I'm interested in making and learning things. And I don't think I've had my fill for bachelor's.
Oh.
Funnily enough, actually, I had a big talk about this with my mentor at work, like on Friday. Anyway, yeah, so I don't think I've gotten my fill of making and learning, in my bachelor's, and I think master's would be a good option. Some people think it isn't worth it. That's like a very common thread.
Uh-huh.
But my mentor at NVIDIA, he did a master's. He actually did a PhD too, and he told me that like even though most people don't find it worth it, and it wasn't worth it for me, it was like the most fun years of my life.
Oh.
And then that's like one of my goals in life is to have as much fun as I can. So just enjoy it is how I think about it.
Okay. I mean, I don't need to keep you any longer. If you have any questions at me or Ryan, you know where to find us. We'll have the fucking thing in the description. It's been a really long episode. It's like 1 hour, 46 minutes. Okay.
It's a long lad.
So here's the final part, Ryan. Any shout outs, anything or any person?
Yeah. Shout out to my girlfriend, Jill. She's awesome. She's a cool person. Shout out to my boss, Swami, at work. Please give me the full time. I want it really badly. Swami, you're a good boss, and I'm not only saying this. You are actually a good boss, but please, I want it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
And that's it. Okay. With that, that was this episode of TCM. What a doozy that was. I mean, I learned a lot. I'm sure everyone else learned a lot. This whole thing was a lot of fun, Ryan. We're gonna go to Hack the North if both of us get accepted.
I'm so hyped.
I was thinking of doing like some TCM like special from like Waterloo.
I have some friends at Waterloo that if you want to talk to, it might be a good idea.
Okay.
Friend worked at Apple and Deloitte. Now he's at Tesla.
Okay, don't get me going right now. Okay, let's close out the episode. Thank you so much, Ryan, for coming. You're definitely one of the most valuable guests we can get on. And yeah, I mean, anything else? Anything you want to say?
No, that's it for me.
All right, we'll see you guys in 2 weeks for the next episode of TCM.